everyone, and welcome back to the special Sunday edition of Wake and Take, where we give you the top starts and sits by position for the week. This week, we're, of course, discussing week 2. I've got the best start: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, the players to sit at those positions, as well as 3 flex plays that you need to keep your eye on this weekend as you're setting your lineup. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, and before we get into it, why don't we recap how we did last week? I would say we were pretty successful, had a few misses, but last week we told you to start Jaden Daniels, start Kenneth Walker, sit Joe Burrow, sit Jaylen Warren, sit Dalton Schultz, put Jamison Williams in your flex spot, put Khalil Shakir in your flex spot. Those were some home runs, guys. I mean, those were some incredible hits, I think. But some of the misses, I told you to start Evan Ingram. I told you to start Tank Dell. I told you to flex Chase Brown. And I told you to sit George Pickens. All of those were still meh. So I don't think you lost your week if you started or sat or flexed those people. I think that it was close enough, right? I mean, George Pickens gets the chunk plays. Chase Brown, that was just a weird game for the Bengals. And that was why I sat Joe Burrow. But I just thought that Chase Brown would be involved a little bit more as a pass catcher. Tank Dell almost had a touchdown. And I don't really know what went wrong with Evan Ingram, to be honest. But hey, had lots of good success on the starting side, lots of good success in general. So we're good. We're back this week. Again, these aren't going to be like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, hey, let's start Jalen Hurts. Let's start Patrick Mahomes. No, we're digging a little deeper than that. These are kind of the top-ish, middle-ish tier people that I think you could be getting away with sitting or starting. So you guys know how it is. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. We've got the quarterback position, starting with the start of Matthew Stafford. I'm keeping Matthew Stafford in my lineups this week. I understand he doesn't have a rushing floor, but I love this matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. It's one of the highest point totals of the slate this week. And last week we saw Kyren Williams only average 2.8 yards per carry. Really did not look that good. And the other side, Matthew Stafford, he threw the ball 49 times last week. Him and Cooper Kupp are in 2022 form. They look incredible together right now. And I just think that this game should be a shootout, the Rams versus Cardinals, leading to a decent bit of passing touchdowns and production for Matthew Stafford. Last year, the 2 games he played the Arizona Cardinals since they're in division, he combined for 445 pass yards, 5 touchdowns, and only 1 interception in those 2 games. It was really great performances by him. And I think he'll be able to keep it up this week against the Arizona Cardinals. Go ahead and keep him in your lineup. So much passing volume on his arm. Him and Cooper Kupp again in 2022 form look incredible. Get Matthew Stafford into your lineup. And if you've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got to sit him. I understand that a lot of people out there right now are kind of fading the Browns, but that's the offense that's in disarray. I know last week the Cowboys kind of embarrassed the Browns, but that was largely due to turnovers, as well as just that offense not being productive at all, giving short field to the Dallas Cowboys. And even though the Cowboys won that game pretty handedly, Dak Prescott really didn't have that great of a game. He only had 179 pass yards, only had 1 touchdown, finished with 11 points, finishing as the quarterback 22 on the week. The Cleveland Browns defense is still really good. Last year, they were number 1 against pass yards allowed. They only allowed 2,800 pass yards over the course of the entire season. So it's tough to throw against these guys. It really is. It's tough to go against this Cleveland defense in general. They're very stingy. And we saw Trevor Lawrence struggle last week as well against the Miami Dolphins. Similar stat line to Dak Prescott. He finished as the quarterback 23, also with 11 points, 160 pass yards, and a touchdown. I think that this is another game where you should be keeping Trevor Lawrence on your bench. There should be some tough sledding for the Jaguars offense. And I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to provide enough or should provide enough on paper to be warranting starting this week against that tough Cleveland defense. Basically what I'm saying is, until Cleveland's defense proves me on a consistent basis that they're bad, then I'm going to consider that they were just as good as they were last year. A lot of the same players are still there. It's the same scheme and everything. The Cleveland defense is definitely still good, so I would be worried about starting Trevor Lawrence. Moving to the running back position, we're rolling with Tony Pollard, guys. This is a player we were talked about a lot over the offseason. I kept mentioning to try to target this guy. The Tennessee Titans didn't pay him that money to not utilize him, and we saw in week 1, he owned the backfield. 16 carries to Tyjae Spears 4. He also had 4 targets and 3 receptions. And Tyjae Spears also had 4 targets, but brought in 4 of them. But basically, Tony Pollard, that is 19 touches to Tyjae Spears 8. This is his backfield. And we saw against the New York Jets last week, Jordan Mason run absolutely wild. Of course, a lot of that's going to come from the incredible offensive line and run scheme that the 49ers operate under. But still, I think that the Titans will be looking to run the ball as well, especially with Sauce Gardner taking away Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins still being less than 100%. I could see this Titans team not only relying on the run, but also Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard out of the backfield as pass catchers in this game. So I want Tony Pollard in my lineup. We're starting it up against the New York Jets, and we will be sitting Aaron Jones against the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron Jones last week did have more opportunities than Ty Chandler, but Ty Chandler did have more receptions in the game. And I think that this is going to be a game script that favors the more pass-catching running back in Ty Chandler in this game. This is a game script guess. So, I mean, if you don't want to go with this, then I get it. But the 49ers defense is incredible. Last year, they were number 1 in rush attempts, only allowed the third least amount of rushing yards as well, the 4th least amount of touchdowns, only 1,500 rush yards and 10 touchdowns allowed over the course of the season last year. Just such a tough defense to go up against. And I really think that this Vikings team is not going to look as good as they did last week against the New York Giants. Sam Darnold, I'm fully expecting to turn right back into Sam Darnold, especially going up against the 49ers who practiced against him all year last year. I think this is going to be very, very tough for the Minnesota Vikings. So it's going to be very tough for Aaron Jones to find any relevancy unless he gets a ton of passes. But they have Ty Chandler there, who again had more receptions than Aaron Jones last week. Aaron Jones had 13 carries and 2 receptions. Ty Chandler had 8 carries and 3 receptions. So Aaron Jones might still get some catches, but I could see them leaning on Ty Chandler in this game against the 49ers, given it's such a tough defense, and they're probably going to be playing from behind and probably lose this game pretty quickly. Even that's how I'm looking at it. Either way, I think that this 49ers team is going to absolutely run over the Minnesota Vikings on defense and on offense, really. So I'm going to be sitting Aaron Jones. Moving on to the wide receiver position, we're throwing Rashid Shahed into our lineup this week. The first touchdown in the NFL season, well, I guess on a Sunday, came from Rashid Shahed last week. Derek Carr's first pass attempt was a touchdown to Rashid Shahed, and he finishes the day with 5 targets, brings in 3 of them for 73 yards in the aforementioned touchdown. And it could have been a lot more, but the New Orleans Saints completely ran away with that game quickly to where they were able to abandon the pass and just lean on frickin' Jamal Williams. This game against the Dallas Cowboys, I could see Chris Olave having another rough match, having to go up against Trayvon Diggs all game, leaving the door open for Rashid Shahed to continuously sneak past this defense and get some targets from Derek Carr. I think the Saints will actually be playing from behind in this one, which is a game script that benefits Rashid Shahed. And hey, maybe he'll have some special teams production as well to help out your team. Either way, we are firing up Rashid Shahed against the Dallas Cowboys. Chris Olave has a tough quarterback matchup, and I think that this is a game script that will benefit the Saints passing offense. So I want Rashid Shahed out there. And the wide receiver will be sitting, and we'll see there's going to be some developing news on this, but it's DJ Moore. And this is more so if Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen are out. But even if they are out there, I don't expect them to really be able to make much noise. So I'm expecting this Houston Texans defense that's already stingy enough to basically take away DJ Moore and make Caleb Williams beat him on with his legs, with the run game, or really just the rest of the pass catchers in general. So I think this could be a very, very tough matchup for DJ Moore. He already has a really good corner covering him in Derek Stingley. Now he's probably going to be double or triple teamed if the other wide receivers are out. And Caleb Williams looked pretty bad last week already, so it's very tough to want to bet on that going into only week 2. So I think we're going to be sitting DJ Moore, right? Caleb Williams last week struggled immensely. And while Moore did get 8 targets, he only brought in 5 of them. And those 5 receptions only led to 36 yards with no touchdowns. I could see the Bears having a very tough matchup against these Texans. Could also end up being low scoring as that Bears defense looks pretty good. And I think if Rome Odunze and Allen are out, DJ Moore is going to be the entire defensive game plan to keep him out of the game and make the Bears try to score with the other guys. So if you have DJ Moore, sit him this week. It's a tough matchup. And there's not going to be much help opening up the field for him. It's looking like even if Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen are out there, they're definitely not 100%. And I doubt the defense is going to put much effort into stopping those guys. So sit DJ more. Moving to tight end, this is one that's, this is where we get ballsy. We missed the tight ends last week, our start. So we'll see if we can bounce back this week. We're going deep because there's already been some injuries piling up at tight end. So for the most part, if you got your guy, you're not even questioning about who you're starting. So I decided to go a bit deeper than usual for the tight end position in particular. And we're going to start Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki against the Kansas City Chiefs seems like a decent smash opportunity for him. With T. Higgins doubtful right now, I think that, of course, like we saw last week, the other pass catchers are going to be asked to step up. But given the Chiefs' defensive scheme and how stingy they are against wide receivers, I could see Andre Yoshivas struggling again and kind of leaving some targets available for the other guys. We saw Mike Gesicki last week have 4 targets, brought in 3 of them. The 4th target was a touchdown that he barely dropped, just didn't carry it through the ground. When he bounced up, he lost control. But Mike Gesicki, I think, will be relied upon again. Last week, he only had a 35% snap share and a 47% route participation, and he still was able to get 4 targets in this offense. I think we'll see an uptick in his usage this week. I think this will be a good game for the Bengals to try to bounce back and get right. We know Joe Burrow rises to the occasion, especially against the Chiefs. That's a little bit of a rivalry. So I'm expecting a huge Jamar Chase game. I'm expecting a good Joe Burrow game, but I'm also expecting a pretty decent Mike Gesicki game, and you're able to get him very, very cheap right now. I think the game script will benefit him. I think T. Higgins being out will benefit him, and I think his usage will even go up as the season goes along. So get Mike Gesicki while you can, and take the risk of starting him this week in the fun matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then we will be sitting Isaiah Likely. Now, this is more so for the people that spent like all their fab on Isaiah Likely, went out and traded a ton for him, and think that Isaiah Likely is going to be an every week starter, top 8 tight end, total stud going forward the rest of the season. That's not going to be the case. If you have Isaiah Likely, I am very, very cautious this week. I know that could be wrong. I know that could burn me, but everything last week is so easy to explain away. 1, Mark Andrews hadn't really practiced at all during training camp and was not close to healthy either. And the defense was pretty much just covering him, leaving the door open for Isaiah Likely to get sneaky usage in this game. Now they're going up against the Raiders, and I don't think this game script will benefit the passing game in the way it did last week. And Mark Andrews is only going to get healthier as the season goes along. And I think that Mark Andrews will be utilized a bit more as well as the season goes along. He was on the field more than Isaiah Likely last week. He ran more routes than Isaiah Likely last week. He just wasn't really targeted because the defense was taking him away. And he was less than 100%, so I'm sure it was just part of the game plan to use him a bit more as a decoy. I don't think that's going to be the case all season, and I do think that Isaiah Likely is still the tight end 2 on this team, 3rd in the pecking order behind Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. Could still have a decent game, but this is a game script where I just don't see it really benefiting the passing game, and I think that Mark Andrews is going to get more usage as well. So I just want to be sitting Isaiah Likely. If I have any really better option, really, like any name value, like going into the season that you had ahead of Isaiah Likely, you should be starting them over Isaiah Likely. Now, if he proves me wrong this week, then he's become an every week starter. But I just don't think he's there yet. I would like to see him do it against a negative game script for the passing game. And also with Mark Andrews also getting some involvement as well. We're going to be sitting Isaiah Likely. Definitely don't start him over your studs. Keep him on the bench. Let him prove it to you and go from there. So those are our starts and sits by position. Let's move into 3 bonus flex plays for the week. And this first one's going to be cheating, but we're about good advice here. If you have any doubts about starting Jordan Mason this week, don't. If you have Jordan Mason, he is a lock for your lineup every single week. That offensive line is incredible. The running scheme is incredible. And we just saw Jordan Mason tear up the Jets last week. Now he has an even easier matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. This should be a game script that benefits him as well. Keep Jordan Mason in your lineups. Brandon Cooks as well. I know this is a little bit more of a slam dunk again. Given that Jake Ferguson is out, the targets have to go somewhere. And why not Brandon Cooks, who last week actually looked pretty decent. He had 7 targets, brought in 4 of them for 40 yards and a touchdown. I think that type of usage will continue and maybe even grow as the season goes along. So throw Brandon Cooks into your lineup, especially while Jake Ferguson is out. And lastly, since the last 2 were such slam dunks, I'm digging deep for this one. And we're going to go with start Tyler Boyd against the New York Jets. I think that that'll kind of make up for the slam dunk choices, and we'll go with a riskier Tyler Boyd versus the Jets. We just saw Allen Lazard have 2 touchdowns and get utilized pretty handsomely in against the Jets last week, and Tyler Boyd fits that same kind of role. With Sauce Gardner taking out Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins playing on less than 30% of the snaps last week, he's clearly not healthy yet. And so I think that'll open the door for Tyler Boyd to get some usage. Last week, we saw a good amount of targets, not many yards, but he still was utilized in this offense. And I think that he will continue to be utilized in this offense, maybe be a sneaky flex play this week. Get Tyler Boyd into your deeper league flex spots if you have him, because I think he'll have a pretty decent game. Ladies and gentlemen, happy week 2. We have done it. Those are our starts and sits. Those are our 3 flex plays. That was the week 2 Wake and Take bonus episode of Starts and Sits. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel. And make sure you tune in tomorrow as we come back live, 10 a.m. Eastern, on the Player Profiler YouTube channel for some week 2 reactions. You all have a super Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.